You're listening to the Rite Retirement Show.
70% of people out there listening to the show today are going to need some level of care. It doesn't necessarily mean that 70% are going to end up in a nursing home, but 70% of people will need some assistance out there. The biggest fear is running out of money for the retiree, but what we see is not enough people spend enough of their money.
Cris prides himself in what matters to you. This is the Rite Retirement Show.
Hi there, I'm Luann Fulmer. Welcome to the Rite Retirement Show with certified financial planner and financial advisor Cris Wallace. He is president of WG Financial Group. Also joining us from the firm is Graham Bauer. And Graham is also a certified financial planner, financial advisor, and he's an enrolled agent at the firm. And they're both here again today, as always, to give us very, very helpful advice about retirement planning. The phone number that you can use to reach Cris and our awesome team at WG Financial Group, 256-937-2010. You may call that number or text the word visit for a complimentary discovery session. Remember, you can check us out on Facebook throughout the week. Just look for WG Financial Group 256. And our motto is retire. Sorry, I said it wrong. Our motto is plan, retire, and play. And that's the point. You have to plan before you retire. And then we want you to play in retirement. You can find us online at wgfinancialgroup.com. And also you can find us wherever you get your podcast. Just search for the Rite Retirement Show on Spotify, Apple, or wherever. So hello, Cris and Graham. So excited to get going with you today.
Hello, Luann. We're excited as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to be with you as always, Luann.
Yeah. Hope you guys had a great 4th of July.
Well, since we're recording before the 4th, we haven't had it yet.
I hope we do.
You're supposed to pretend.
Well, we don't pretend on this show. It is all real. So
we hope everyone listening had a great 4th of July.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. I like that.
Exactly. So by the time Saturday gets here, it'll be.
It will have passed.
It'll be the 5th.
Yeah. So next year is 250, right? For the US?
Yeah, 250, guys. I'm excited.
What are we going to do on the show? We're going to have like this big party on air.
We're going to have President Trump on, right?
Ooh, that'd be funny.
No, probably not quite yet.
Yeah, we might spark some conversation from that if that happened for sure. So,
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I wanted to let you know that today is a big day for me. I am now switching from my Blue Cross Blue Shield to Medicare A and B, and now I have Part N.
Wait, you're 65?
Yes, you know that. I'm turning 66.
I know, but I bet you half the listeners out there don't realize that you're 65.
Yeah, you don't sound 65.
I am glad. I hope I have a young sounding voice because
you sound 28.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows, right?
Right.
Till they see me, and then they're like, "Oh,
you got A and B. What'd you get as a secondary?
So
plan?
I got Plan N.
N as in Nancy.
Yeah, because G was going up double digits in price in the time when I was planning for it and everything, and so we went with Plan N.
Yeah, so that's great. Actually, that's one of our recommendations.
Is it?
That we typically make. It kind of reminds me, just to kind of get into real talk. I've seen social media reels on Medicare Advantage and supplemental plans, and I'm not sure who you worked with because just full disclosure, you did not work with our office on your health insurance, nor did you even ask me. So my feelings are hurt.
Oh, don't be hurt. It's somebody at my work. It's okay. It's somebody here at work.
Well, my feelings are still hurt, so. Doesn't matter. Doesn't make me feel any better. Tell them to call me.
Sorry.
No, so you made a good recommendation. So just real quick, personally, this is just, again, what I like to call gospel according to Cris. Those Advantage plans pay a significant amount more to the agent. So it's oftentimes that I see them pushed on people at a higher rate because the insurance agent makes a higher commission on those. And it's set, and I don't actually know what it is. We could probably Google it and look it up, but I want to say it's like $475 per policy that they sell. And then there's some really killer renewals that come off of those. So for every year that you stay in, the agent makes renewals. So it doesn't take long to build up a book of business and Advantage plans. Get paid a lot of money, and then you have these renewals kind of kicking in. We're able to see it, Graham, what it's.
Yeah, it looks like it's $500-600, and then there's the renewals yearly as well, and a couple $100.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that's all the reason, because some people choose them and they have their own reasons. And I do know that they work in certain situations better. And supplements are great. They pay a lot less in terms of commission, but they cover a lot.
They do cover a lot.
Yeah, you kind of look at them like pay now, pay later plans. So the pay now plan is what you have. You're going to pay now so that when you go to the doctor, I think with the N plan, you have some small copays that come along with N.
That's what I'm going to have. Yes. Out-of-pocket costs for copays. Yes.
Yeah, and that's about it. You have an out-of-pocket deductible as well. It's the same as the G plan. They both carry the same out-of-pocket deductible. But the N plan is a little bit cheaper on a monthly basis. My guess, I'm sure they compare prices, but my guess is it's probably about $30 cheaper a month than what the G plan is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's good, solid policy. I like those. My father started on the Advantage plan just because it was lower cost. And then finally, honestly, my stepmother said, I'm not driving you to the city of Atlanta to go to your doctor anymore because that's an hour drive every time we go. And I want to have the freedom to go wherever I want to go. And so you're switching plans. And she basically dropped the hammer. And Dad was like, okay, yeah, we'll switch plans. So, took care of him and he's all set now. But yeah, just we're big fans of the supplemental plans just due to the amounts that they cover. They cover just a lot more than what the Medicare Advantage plan does. And the argument for a lot of people is I'm in great health today. And so I'd rather have a plan that doesn't cost me anything. Well, as we age, we're more likely to get sick or we're more likely to have a health occurrence or go in the hospital as we age. And once you get outside this open enrollment, so it's important with you turning 65, you have these windows on either side of that to make a decision on what health plan to go with. And once you get outside of that window, if you did not choose the plan in, let's just say, for example, that you went with the Advantage plan, and then change your mind 2 years down the road, kind of like what my dad did.
Yeah.
Well, now you have to qualify by answering the health questions. And
right.
Sometimes you can have a health occurrence or health event that will prohibit you from changing, and then you're locked into that Advantage plan. So we always tell people at 65, that's a big decision point for a lot of retirees. And maybe if you're still working, it's a big decision point on which type of insurance to go with and what coverage is ultimately going to be best for you in the short term and in the long term. So congratulations.
I guess.
Happy birthday. Happy Medicare birthday.
Yes.
Happy supplemental birthday.
So is that the age where you can start getting senior discounts at like the movie theater?
It's been happening.
Or is it 60?
Graham, it's been happening since 60.
Is it 60? Okay.
We went to the movie theater and they go, I think you qualify for a senior. We're like, what?
Did they say that based upon just like
looking at us?
Looking at you
something
or looking
like
at your
that.
ID?
And we're like, and with Bobby and I looked at each other and we're like, okay. So then they we got in a couple of bucks cheaper. So we were like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then that's a little embarrassing. I think you qualify as a senior citizen.
I'm sure the first time you ever hear that is the hardest time to hear it.
It is, yes.
And then you settle, and then you're like, save $3.
Save money. Yeah,
not
exactly.
too bad.
Yeah,
not bad. Not bad at all. So, all right, let's move into some federal talk for a minute. So, Fed minutes, as we like to call it. So, one of the things we wanted to touch on this week, Graham and I were kind of talking about the FEGLI life insurance that the federal employees have. They have as an option as a federal employee. And one of the things that we've always kind of stressed to those that we work with is it's expensive to have FEGLI insurance. And I'll kind of start off by saying, the federal government they don't want to be in the life insurance business. So they make it pretty expensive for you to buy. And ultimately, in our opinion, they kind of want you off their payroll or their, I guess, obligations balance sheet, if you will. But so when we talk about the options that are there, you have A, B, and C. And I think when you start looking at the federal government life insurance, most people use it as a way to kind of act as a term policy. And we've said this time and time again about getting all of your insurance through the employer, because what if you don't have that job in 5 years? And we're talking about health, and let's say you have a health occurrence and now you get another job where they're not offering the same life insurance and you need life insurance, maybe because you have a family or you still have some debt obligations. And now your new employer doesn't offer it and you've had a health occurrence and you can't get insurance because it's so expensive. Our I guess, advice to people, in general, is to have your own policy on the outside. And I think there was a day not too long ago, I would say 6, 8 months ago, that if you worked for the federal government, the first thing you never thought about was getting laid off. And now all we've heard this year is, DRP and Vera, VSIP, and now maybe RIFs. And, it's a little scary for some. So, our message here is always buy your term life insurance on the outside. And if you're looking at the FEGLI life insurance, it increases at age bands, and it starts at age 35, and every 5 years it goes up. And that's really the challenge with the FEGLI life insurance, because by the time you get into your 50s, you may still owe a little bit on your house. You may be still trying to put a kid through college, and that life insurance is costing you a lot of money, when we think it would have been a lot better off to just go and buy some 20 or 30 year level term that's level, hence the word level. It's not going to increase for that period of time versus the FEGLI insurance. And that's basically our recommendation there. It's just when you're making this decision, I think it's easy at work to check a box and just say, oh, I'll take the rest or I guess the additional life insurance. It's payroll deduct. They'll pull it out. But if you actually sit back and crunch the numbers, you can probably get an outside policy a lot cheaper. And then you could then take that differential and put it into your 401k or your TSP. So, that's kind of the Fed talk this week is just take a look at your term or your FEGLI insurance and do some outside looking at some term life insurance. We do that at the office. So if that's something, you're interested in, you can call the office at 256-937-2010, and we will be kind of happy to look at that for you. Gives you a chance to meet us as well. Kind of sit down with us. We'll do a look at what's going on in your retirement situation as well, and make sure you got enough life insurance. So that's kind of the Fed talk.
I love it. Okay, federal talk. Now let's talk about the market. It's doing pretty good right now.
It's not bad. It's not bad right now.
That's surprising, right?
It is. If you just kind of listen to what's going on right now, I have this kind of uncanny ability to remember certain things. And then I forget certain things. But what I do remember is in 2018, if you remember during Trump's first presidency, there was a point around middle of the year, kind of close to where we are now, probably more so in the September timeframe, where President Trump was leaning on the feds to cut rates. And if you were watching the news this week, or maybe following stuff on X, formerly Twitter, you saw where President Trump, did you see this, Graham, where he signed like this piece of paper where he listed all of the other countries' interest rates, and I think Switzerland was the lowest. And he basically hand wrote a note to Jerome Powell and says, "You are late. And look at all these other people, there are other countries, the rates are lower and you're late." Did you see that?
I did not. I know that he was going off on Jerome Powell on Twitter, but I didn't see that specific one. Yeah.
So here we are. This was happening too. You can Google this kind of stuff and figure it out for yourself or look at it for yourself. But I actually sent like 3 articles in a row to my executive assistant to say, he's doing the exact same thing that he was doing in 2018. And then if you look at when the Fed started lowering rates, it happened in 2019, and then the market kind of took off. So I think what's going on here is Trump is leaning really hard on the Feds to cut rates. And I would say that they're not going to cut in July, but I don't want to guarantee on the air, but I'm going to go ahead and make what we call a bold prediction. The next meeting, which I believe is September, I believe that the Feds will cut rates in September, partially because there is a little bit of weakening in the labor market. GDP came in a little bit low, but I also think it's because Trump is really leaning on the Feds really, really hard. And like I said, he did the same thing in 2018. So it's the same playbook again. And I think the same result is going to happen. I think the Feds are going to lower rates. I do think some people are worried about inflation. And I just want to talk about that for a second. We are, we're in a different position than we were back in 2020 and 2021. The main thing that caused inflation, and remember, I said this, and I probably had some people get mad at me. It wasn't just a United States problem. Inflation was a global problem. And that's because the world decided to just give a whole bunch of free money to everybody and continue to give free money to everybody, and then shut down companies where companies weren't able to make product. And so we all, as people in the world, had a lot of extra money, and there weren't a lot of extra parts or products because companies weren't making them; they were shut down. So when those companies started back up, there was a lot more money pumped into the system, and not enough stuff to buy. So the people that were selling the items, i.e., cars, because if you remember right, you couldn't find a car, and if you did, I think there was some dealerships that were in our local area going for 10 and 20,000 over sticker. People were buying things sight unseen. The cost of used cars was crazy because the person that had the product, or the company that had the product, could pretty much name the price because everybody had money. And then it was kind of, for lack of a better term, a bidding war. And then you had the Build Back Better bill that got passed through. And I think it was the senator out of West Virginia, Manchin, who probably saved the bill from being $4 trillion. I think it got cut down to something like $2 trillion. It was basically cut in half. It was still too much cash to be pushed into the system at the wrong time. I say all of that because I don't believe that we're in that type of situation right now. So I personally believe what the feds are worried about, and this is probably President Trump's, not probably, it is his fault because he's very unpredictable. So personally, and I won't get into the reasons why, I think that's good and bad. It has good and bad. The bad here is I think the feds are actually worried about the tariff impact in 2026. And right now, we really haven't seen, to a large degree, any type of inflationary impact from the tariffs. But I think what the feds are worried about is what could happen in 2026. But here's the unknown, really the unknown and known. President Trump holds the tariff card, essentially, because he can continue the pause. Because I think, Graham, you said before show that they were talking about, we're coming up on the deadline. I think it's
the 90 days. Yeah.
Yeah, the 90 days. And I pretty sure I read or saw a video where Trump said, I don't have to unpause it. I can continue the pause. And that's one of those unknowns that I think is good and bad. And the good is he can continue the pause. He can lower tariffs. He can do kind of whatever he wants to do. And I was just looking at, speaking of tariffs, just the amount of money that's come in from tariffs this year. And we're looking at a fairly substantial amount. And it looks like there is somewhere around 81 billion this year that's been brought in the way of tariffs. So it's definitely bringing in some revenue, and it's considerably higher than prior years. So it is raising revenue. And I think that's obviously that's a good thing for the United States. And I just wonder, again, this is just gospel according to Cris, if President Trump is willing to kind of throttle it a little bit, to because it seems like he uses everything as a negotiation tactic. Yeah. So I think this tariff thing, and we talked about this probably 3 months ago, that the tariffs have kind of been a negotiating thing with other countries and such. So I do believe that he's kind of doing that again, even with the feds. And so if the numbers start, I guess, causing an issue in terms of inflation, he can always, back off the tariffs if need be. But here's the bottom line. Here's the bold prediction. Market's going to end up, I told Graham in a text over the weekend, 9.4 positive for the year. Mm-hmm. Which I think I said that high single digits, I think, on a previous show. I'll have to have my son Caleb pull an episode and see if he can run an AI overlay and find where I said that back in like January. But I think high single digits, I'm still standing by that. So 9.4, that's kind of my bold prediction. And I'm bold predicting that the Feds will start lowering rates because the squeaky wheel is going to get the grease, I believe. So that's kind of where I think things are headed market-wise.
Can I make my interest rate prediction real quick?
Oh, for sure.
So
first, I want to know your market return prediction. Because do you want to talk about what you text me?
Yeah. So my return prediction for the end of the year, My view on it is everything is so fluid that we can be 5% today, we could be 10% tomorrow, and then we could be 2% the day after that. Yep. So I think I'm still with you on slightly positive, but I'm probably going more in the 2 to 3% positive range. I just don't see 3 years in a row of double-digit market returns or close to double-digit market returns with just the overall economy. It feels wrong in this current environment, but that hasn't stopped it the past 2 years. So I'm willing to be wrong there. As far as interest rates go, Jerome Powell's term is up May 2026. In my opinion, at the very least, you're seeing interest rates drop pretty much the second Jerome is out of there because, I have no illusion that the next chair of the Fed will not be there probably specifically for his feelings towards whether or not interest rates should be lowered. Right. So, I would say that to be perfectly honest, I think there's a pretty good chance it's not till May 2026. I know I'm pushing it back a little bit further. Whoa. Jerome Powell has been very consistent about the uncertainty keeping him from lowering. I would just think you would have to see a large tick up in unemployment or a decently substantial tick down in inflation that has kind of stayed mostly level. But, again, I'm okay to be wrong on this one. We can come back to this in a few months.
Yeah. So the next meeting after the 30th of July, which again, I pretty much say is a 0% chance we get a cut. And the next one is September the 17th. And currently just looking at the futures, it's calling for a cut of 25 basis points. And it's saying there's a 75% chance. Jerome Powell did come out either today or yesterday and said that a stable coin option would probably help as well. And that's something that Trump and his, good grief, I think Treasury Secretary, is it Scott Bessent?
Scott Bessent.
Bessent, however you say his name. I'm sorry if he's listening. He's probably not. But if he's listening and I butchered your name, I'm really sorry about that. They've kind of floated that idea as well. So this is what I tell people also. And I said, Lou Ann, we probably weren't going to go the entire first segment talking about this. And we're going to be pretty doggone close.
That's okay.
The feds and just the government and the way that they can finagle, print, they just can do things monetarily that we can't do. Like when my bank account runs out of money, I'm done. I can't spend.
Yeah, that's
I'm done. If my credit card reaches the limit, I'm done. I can't spend. That's not the case with the federal government and how they're able to just do things. And honestly, a lot of it's hard to understand. It's hard to comprehend. Like, what does that mean? And how are they even doing this? And what's the danger in this? And so, anyway, so there's that. As we wrap this up, I just do want to say that, I said 9.4. Graham, you said, 2, maybe 3. Current year market is up 5.77. So I just kind of want to throw that out there, Graham. So we can just get that on record right now. So you're saying the market's going to drop from here.
Just for historical context, though, weren't we up like 2% in February and then down about 20 a few weeks later, and now we're up 5? So the volatility here, I'm okay to be a couple percentage points away from end of year in July.
Okay, all right.
I think we can bridge the gap.
That's fair. That's what the millennials say. That's fair. That's fair. All right, awesome. Lou Ann, we can get on with the rest of the show. Good stuff there.
All right. Well, we'll kind of get into this then. We're going to talk about reasons to switch financial advisors. And
on this show? Oh, Lord.
Wait, I'm not talking about you.
We're talking about other financial advisors.
I see. Okay. Fire us before you hire us.
So funny. No, I'm talking about just in general, okay? So obviously a good financial advisor is going to help you reach your retirement goals. A poor one could maybe hold you back. Maybe they're not bringing some things up and you don't even know it, right? So you might say, Chris, that the wrong financial advice is actually worse than going it alone on your retirement. Would you say that?
Yeah, I would. I think when you're looking at a financial advisor, I think there's several things you have to look at. First and foremost, you have to like them because you're probably going to talk to them or their staff, multiple times a year. So I think you have to first decide whether or not you like the person, male or female, doesn't matter. There's some really good female financial advisors out there. We got a couple on staff. They're amazing. Then I think you have to kind of make the determination, do you like them? And maybe this is kind of, encompassed in liking them, but are they kind of the same moral type person that that you are? And make sure all of those things line up first. And then I think when you start looking at an advisor, I think people nowadays are starting to realize that they want more than just a conversation about some mutual funds. And I think we've seen this a lot in our office. And those that end up hiring us, they understand that we're going to look at things in a more well-rounded fashion. We walk through an entire process that we have. It's outlined on a report card so that when we do our second meeting, we've kind of got an individual or a family graded, meaning we have that report card up, and we talk through efficiencies and then also inefficiencies. It's basically, here's what you're doing well, and here's where we think we can help you. Some of it is really deep. And then as we are recording the show, my executive assistant who works with me on some of the clients that we serve, we're actually going through a portfolio right now, and we are extracting gains and losses and trying to net those against each other. And the reason we're having to do this is there was some old mutual funds that an advisor put them in, say years ago at this point, and they have some pretty large gains and they have some pretty large losses. But the dangers of owning mutual funds in a non-qualified account is that it can create something that we call phantom gains. And we talked about this on a show not too long ago. And what we are trying to do is we're trying to get rid of that. And that's part of our, report card. And can we harvest some things, on the tax side to help out in the short term and then also in the long term? Because if you're not careful, if you're holding these mutual funds in a non-qualified account, what you don't know, and you really don't know this is going to happen until it's already happened. And then once it's happened, there's not a lot you can do about it, is once the mutual fund manager decides to let's just call it readjust the portfolio inside of those funds, maybe sell off some appreciated positions, it triggers that capital gains to you. And there's not anything you can do about it at the time. And you end up getting a higher 1099. And, again, we've seen this time and time again. So part of what we like to do is look at things on that kind of level. And I think what people are starting to realize is, hey, taxes are really important to me. That's what we hear from families coming in. Taxes are important to me because I think people are starting to realize it may be, maybe not the first, but if not, it'll be number two. The highest expense you're going to have in retirement is paying your tax bill to the IRS. So one of our, strategies is to let's work on how to become very efficient with, with the funds and with how you're pulling money out. I'll give you another thing you can look at is charitable giving. When you hit 70.5, you can do the QCD. Well, we've seen situations where somebody was doing a QCD and they were literally satisfying all of their RMD with the QCD. But they were still wanting to give more. And so we've seen situations where, hey, you have this appreciated stock over here. Let's QCD out as much as we can to satisfy the RMD. And then let's flip and let's start giving appreciated assets to the other charities that you want to give to. So I think when families nowadays are starting to recognize, okay, I want to look for a certified financial planner. I want to work with a firm that has several of those on staff. We have 4. And I want something that's a little bit more well-rounded in value. In other words, I just don't want to pay you a fee to manage my assets. I'm willing to pay you a fee for you to manage my retirement. And I think that's what we're really, I would say that's what we're really good at. And that's how we're geared, at the firm. And if you're listening to this show, it's the end of the first half. You're catching it on the way to church. You can give us a call at 256-937-2010. Again, the number's 256-937-2010. If you're catching only the first half, you can hop out to Apple Podcast or Spotify, catch the whole episode. We got a whole another half to go. Hope you're enjoying it so far.
Are questions about your financial future, such as, have I saved enough? Or will my retirement last, keeping you up at night? Text VISIT to 256-937-2010. That's text VISIT to 256-937-2010 and schedule your consultation today.
Are you a federal employee feeling pressure from the early retirement offers like VERA, VSIP, or the Deferred Resignation Program? Recent government initiatives have introduced significant changes to federal retirement programs, making employees feel pressured to consider early retirement or face potential layoffs. At WG Financial Group, we help guide federal employees through these uncertain times. Our team understands the complex federal retirement systems and can help you make informed decisions. Call 256-937-2010 to schedule your complimentary discovery session with us today. We'll help you assess your options and create a personalized retirement plan to help you feel more confident. Visit WGFinancialGroup.com or call 256-937-2010 to book your session. Firm is not affiliated with the U.S. government. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
If lingering doubts like, have I saved enough? Or will my retirement funds endure? Are on your mind, it's time to consult with Cris Wallace. Text VISIT to 256-937-2010. That's 256-937-2010 to book your appointment and get the answers you need.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. This is the Rite Retirement Show with Cris Wallace. And of course, he's president at WG Financial Group, certified financial planner and financial advisor there. And then also joining us, as he does every week, Graham Bauer from the firm, too. He's a certified financial planner, financial advisor, and an enrolled agent at the firm. So we're having a great discussion here on just trying to decide, is your advisor the right one for you at this time? How can people tell? Are there some warning signs, Graham?
Yeah, I think that there are definitely some warning signs as you sit down and talk to people. I would say just, to start this conversation off, and, I agree with everything Cris just said. When you're going through the process, it is so important to like the person, to, have a good relationship with that person you're working with and be able to connect with them. That's in a lot of ways why we like to encourage people that, hey, when you're going through the process of, looking for someone, it's good to talk to a couple of different people and just, see people's different philosophies, because everybody's going to do things a little bit differently. There are some things, in this industry that are pretty black and white in our opinion, but, you'll hear people with different, logic and different math behind certain things that'll say it should be done differently. So I think it's valuable to hear some, different perspectives. I think one of the biggest, indicators you might have that, it might be a good thing to talk to someone else, to have a second opinion, is if, like Cris was talking about, that conversation when you go in, twice a year, once a year, whatever it is, really just revolves around just the money that they're actively managing. Because, it's easy to get caught up in that. I think for a lot of people, obviously that's what a lot of the compensation, or usually all the compensation, comes from. However, people's retirement and their financial picture their money is very important, but it's not all about their money. Mm-hmm. When we're going through our discovery session, when people come in to go through the Rite retirement process, assets is like the last thing we talk about in the meetings. Before that, you want to get to know a lot more about people's financial situation, because what might make sense just based on a few questions of, hey, here's your age, here's when you want to retire, how do you want to invest, aggressive or conservatively, might not make quite as much sense when you know more about their goals, their convictions, and, what ultimately they want their lifestyle to look like. It can be two very different pictures. I've had conversations with people recently where, they have a fairly simple situation on the surface, or looking to do something simple. And then as we start talking about goals, aspirations for the future, they throw out something that it's like, oh, wow, that is a big curveball. That really changes the way that we need to look at, what we're doing from the perspective of how we're investing, where we're investing it, where we should be saving, all of those different things. So I think that on a high level, a really primary thing would be, if you're just focusing on the accounts, not looking at, your goals, your aspirations, there can be a lot of things missed, and that could be a good indication that, it might be time to look around a little bit.
Yeah, I want to add a little bit to that here. Actually, we were just talking about interest rates, and while you were talking, Graham, I flipped over to X because I like to kind of watch the live news as it pops up while we're recording. And Trump said, anybody will be better than Powell. So I guess he was holding an interview.
It's funny, like because he appointed Powell, right?
Yeah, he did.
Initially. Yeah. It's so funny. They've really gone
Gosh.
Well, he was buddy with
frenemies.
Elon a few months back too. So
That's
Yeah,
true.
right.
you may not want to be friends with Trump. You might be friends for
Or at least don't work for him, I guess.
Yeah,
There you
exactly.
go.
So anyway, I want to add something to that about the advisor thing that we're talking about here. I think one of the things that also I see out there is that I think advisors push their bias on the client or the prospect. And let me kind of unpack that a little bit. So I think a lot of advisors, especially newer advisors, think that you can't lose money in retirement. I think that there's this belief that, okay, now I'm a financial advisor and I have these clients and I just cannot allow them to lose money. And to me, that's the furthest thing from the truth. I think that you can lose money in retirement. Here's what I think matters: when and how much. It's not that you can't, it's when can I afford to lose it, which in our opinion is very late in your working years or very early in your retirement years. And then how much matters. And you kind of figure that stuff out with math. So I just wanted to mention that I think the advisor bias is kind of a real thing. I think that they can almost lead with fear in a way, is kind of the way that I say it. And I think at our office, that what's different about the way that we do financial planning is it is about the plan. Like, what does our planning process, the Rite Retirement process, what does it say about your entire situation? Does it tell us that you're better off to be a little bit less aggressive, that you can still afford to lose some money, but you can't lose a lot? And here's the amount. If we lose this, it puts us in jeopardy, that sort of thing. We kind of tilt things back to the plan and not just about a conversation about, hey, it's good to see you again. I was just looking at your account, which is not true, but that's what they always say. I was just looking at your account and I was just thinking it's probably time to switch these mutual funds out and add these other mutual funds in. And it's like, okay, well, in our opinion, there's like a lot more, as Graham noted, to a retirement plan than just that conversation.
Yeah. And I think a lot of our process is geared towards on the front end, answering that big question of, am I going to be able to retire? What does that look like? How much can I spend? All those big questions.
Do I have enough?
Yeah. Do I have enough? It's just really that fundamental question. But then when you get that certainty, then it opens up, honestly, I think the much bigger bucket of questions that needs to be asked. I think a lot of people focus so hard on the do I have enough that, once you get past that question, that's really when the real work starts of, okay, I do, what do I do about it?
Right. And I think
with it too,
here's another big question. And I've actually seen probably 3 people in the last month that have come in. And when I say 3 people, I mean husbands. And the number one reason that they've come in to sit down to talk to me is because they said, I either have a health issue or in the event I have a health issue, my wife, she doesn't know what to do. And I need to know that she has somebody that's in our eyes trustworthy that she can come sit down and talk to about, that can explain things on a level that she can understand if something happens to me. So we've even had that, that situation now happen like 3 times where people have come in to really seek us out as that partner in the event they pass away. So they'll go ahead and start working with us, and knowing that they were kind of doing some things on their own. But even at that, even though they were do-it-yourselfers, we still were able to open their eyes to some things that we could do a little bit better in terms of efficiency. But that spousal protection is kind of a big deal as well. This is also something we look at in our planning process.
I love that they, the husband wanted to come to you guys and make sure that they have an advisor that can, sort of switch to the wife if needed, if something did happen to him. So I think that's really cool and speaks to how you guys genuinely care about couples and individuals, but you are there for families.
Yeah. For me personally, I think it takes a strong man to admit that, to come in and say, we could probably use some help here. And I want to make sure my wife is going to be okay. Because the truth be told, I've heard this kind of stuff before. Oh, she'll be fine. she'll be fine. I got the house. She's got my 401k. She can sell the house. It's like, that's not a great way to look at things, in my opinion. It's not the way I want to leave my spouse. I can promise you that.
Yeah. And you guys give guidance, and that's what we're offering today. If you have any questions about things we talk about on our show, this very issue here, you can certainly get a second opinion by giving them a call. Okay, WG Financial Group 256-937-2010. Reach out to Cris and his team. It's a complimentary visit. Call or text the word visit 256-937-2010. And again, you're listening to the Rite Retirement Show. We are so happy to have you along with us today. And we're talking about just making sure that that advisor is the right one for you, especially as you're heading into retirement. There's so much to consider when it comes to financial planning for retirement. Let me ask you guys this, and I don't care who takes this answer, but is there a specific issue that you find is often overlooked by the typical broker or advisor?
100%. It's taxes.
Taxes. I knew
100%.
it.
Yeah, 100% is taxes. And I'll tell you why. So as an investment advisor, you do have to be careful. There is a line I feel like you have to walk, because we're not allowed to give tax advice. But yet when you're in the CFP course, you're tested on taxes. And there's a book and they'll tell you, the CFP board will tell you it's the hardest test to pass is the tax portion of the test. So as an advisor, like I said, there's a fine line you have to walk. So I feel like we'll talk about tax-related items in a plan, and then we'll usually refer out to a CPA or an EA that we work with, or their CPA, whomever, just to kind of verify what we're trying to tell them. During our process, Luann, that we walk through, our Rite Retirement process, it literally touches up to 25 different items in a retirement plan. So 25. So if you're listening to the show and you sit down with your advisor and you talk about one item, which is your annual rate of return or whatever you talk about, if you're not talking about 20 to 25 different items, then I don't think you're getting that well-rounded service that I think everybody is deserving of, especially if they're hiring an advisor. So our card touches on about 25 of those. Half of those are tax. So we look at adjusted gross income, Roth conversions, HSAs, employer plans, spousal, QCD, charitable opportunities, gifting appreciated assets, donor advised fund, the NIT tax, IRMA brackets, tax loss harvesting. There's just a whole bunch of them that we look at. And we got to go through and we say, do we have opportunity here? Can we help this family help themselves by looking at these areas? And then we score that on a report card. So without a doubt, Luann, it's taxes. And again, a couple reasons. One is we're not technically allowed to give tax advice. Mm-hmm. The second thing is most don't understand it. Yes. I have advisors that I know within the industry that I don't want to say mentor, because I don't want to try to sound like I'm smarter than them or whatever, but they have reached out to me and they like to do consultative calls with me as a friend. Hey, can you talk to me on your way home from work? And I need to understand this a little bit better. And so I think Graham's had the same thing where he'll have people reach out and just kind of, he can talk to and kind of teach them about certain things. Graham's an enrolled agent, so he's got a pretty heavy tax certification himself. So yeah, so that's kind of the reasons why. It's a fine line we have to walk. And then I think there's just a lack of understanding. And because of that lack of understanding on an advisor side, then I think that translates into fear. And then the answer becomes, oh, well, I can't really talk to you about that because I can't give tax advice.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, I can definitely speak to the fact that, of course, as a certified financial planner, just an IAR, it doesn't really matter what your designation is as a financial advisor. Yeah, there is always going to be that, tax advice component of verifying things with, people CPAs or EAs that are, practicing on that side of the business. But, again, even if you're not giving advice, you do need to have an understanding at the very least, because there's the reason why the CFP curriculum and so many other professional certifications in this space talk so much about it is because it touches everything.
Literally.
I mean, it touches every single thing that you do to some extent. If there's a question that someone has about something, usually part of it has to do with the tax impact of doing it. If it's like, oh, I want to make a withdrawal from this account, or, with these capital gains or this IRA or this Roth IRA or this charitable gift, what are the tax implications of that? Or even like, oh, I'm thinking of setting up this kind of trust or that kind of trust. What are the tax implications of that? If I do this, what is the tax implications for my Social Security? And so pretty much everything you're doing is affecting that in some way, shape, or form. So I totally agree with you. There has to be, a good understanding because, if not, we've certainly seen situations in the past. I mean, I've seen multiple times over the years, this is, not like necessarily the biggest thing in the entire world, but it was highly avoidable. Someone just, barely going over an IRMA limit because they did some Roth conversion or had some capital gains in an account and they just went over by, $500 or $1,000 on their MAGI. So, there are just some of those little things where it's like, that maybe isn't going to ruin your entire retirement, but it was avoidable. It could have saved you money. And really all it took was not even like a total expertise, but just a good, solid understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody just looking over your shoulder in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So obviously you guys, would give a second opinion if anybody wanted to have one. But I want to go to fees and
Luann, sorry, real quick. I apologize for interrupting. Most of what we do are second opinions.
Yeah.
I would say half the people,
really
50 to 60% of people that come in have other advisors. So yeah, we definitely do second opinions all day long. Yep.
Okay. Well, good. See, so again, they're here and ready to talk to you. But yeah, like I said, let's switch to fees and expenses because they can add up over time and eat away at your retirement savings and you don't even know it, So how can people get a better handle on what they're paying for the advice that they're getting?
Well, first of all, when we look at just fund fees in general, anything, if your portfolio is generating a fund fee, higher than 0.2 to 0.3, you need some work because there's plenty of funds out there that are lower cost. And I'm actually looking at a retirement report card that we did here, and this was actually sitting at 0.83. So this particular portfolio is nearly 1%. That's close to what a lot of advisors charge, and that's what the fund fees are. That doesn't include what the advisor is charging. So let's just say the advisor is charging 1.1%, then this total expense ratio with the fund fees included and the advisor charge, we're sitting at about 1.93 in total. Then you have to start asking yourself, okay, am I getting that kind of value? Or is that broker or advisor just managing my assets? Are they walking me through an entire plan? And I think that's the question we have to ask ourselves when we go to work with somebody where we pay a fee. I personally pay a fee to have mine professionally managed. And I feel like that's worth it because it keeps my hands off of it. And there's plenty of, studies out there that show that the average investor ends up underperforming someone who has the money managing capabilities because they can't keep their hands out of the cookie jar is what I like to call it. So I think there's some advantages there. And I think you just have to ask yourself on the value side of things, okay, if I'm paying them to not only manage my money, but are they also providing some efficient ways to do things otherwise? Are they looking out for my kids? Are they looking out for my spouse? Do I know that they're going to be here, if I pass away? There's a lot of things that to me go into that fee decision where I think a lot of people just say, well, what do you charge? And they don't put a lot of thought into the additional pieces of value. Like I said, our report card touches up to 25 different places in retirement. Most people, you're going to go in, it's like, okay, we can manage your money. Well, how much do you charge? It's like, well, we can manage your retirement. We're going to go over about 25 areas of your retirement, make sure you're efficient in all of those, and this is what we charge. And that's kind of where I think we're different. I think that's what you have to ask yourself is, am I getting the value for the fee that I'm paying?
Yeah.
And one other thing I'll add to that is, I think it's so important that you can easily get that information too, that's easily understandable for you. I've seen a few scenarios where someone will come in and we'll talk about it and, they'll be like, oh, well, okay, yeah, that's your guys' fee. I just have to figure out what the fee I'm currently paying is. And they'll come back and be like, yeah, they gave me this information, but I'm not really sure. Or some scenarios where they're like, oh, there's no fee over there. And it's like, well, they're not a charity. So there is going to be something somewhere. So I think it's really important that, you also understand what those are, and that it's easily accessible to you. You don't have to go digging around and talking to 12 different people to figure out, what you're paying for a service.
Okay, so then here's the other thing. Every investment does come with risk, right? And that can make people uneasy. So let's talk about that, how people can make sure their advisor is giving them advice that actually matches their comfort level.
Yeah. So this does go kind of somewhat back to what I was saying earlier about the advisor bias. I think that can bleed over into the client portfolio. So let me make some examples here. Let's say that maybe I'm trying to think of a good way to say it, a nice way to say it, and try to say it non-political, because that's where it typically comes back in. So in our last presidency with President Biden, I think it would have been very easy for advisor bias to say, hey, I don't trust what's going on in the administration. I don't think the market's going to do that well. We should go into this type of investment. To me, that's kind of the advisor bias bleeding over into the client and not really matching what their true risk level is. So when you look at risk level, it's our opinion that we feel like you have two types of risk. You have risk tolerance, which is your stomach. Like when the market drops, how does your stomach feel? Not good. Okay, well, that's your risk tolerance. That's how you feel. Is the emotional side of things. And then we feel like you have risk capacity. So what is my capacity for risk? And what I mean by that is, what does my plan tell me that I can accept as risk without damaging my plan in the short run or the long run? And so I think marrying the two of those and working with a client and educating a client on how they should be invested, how their plan should be set up, and trying to find that middle ground between risk tolerance and risk capacity without imposing your own bias, but let the data speak. And I think that's what people are out there seeking. I think it's very easy to say, well, I'm conservative. Well, what does that really mean? Because I think the word conservative can mean different things to different people. To some, it's like, I don't want to lose a dime. And I want to have all of my money in safe investments, such as no loss annuities, CDs, treasuries, things like that. Another person's version of conservative might mean, hey, I'm okay with a 45% stock exposure. So I think really having a deeper conversation with a client or a prospect, sitting down with them, not going over a questionnaire, like 5 questionnaire to understand the risk. I really truly believe it involves a conversation of getting to know the person in the family that you're talking to, and then also taking some of that knowledge that you've gleaned from those conversations and look at their retirement plan and say, okay, here's where we're at capacity wise. I know, Susie, you don't want to lose a dime. I get it. Nobody likes to lose money, but here's the reality. You guys can actually afford to lose a little bit of money. So that'll enable you to take a certain amount of risk. How do you feel about this situation? And kind of walk through and just kind of help couples, individuals and families out that way.
Okay, so if someone's listening and they're worried their current advisor is no longer a good fit, or let's say there's someone who is a do-it-yourselfer, okay, and they haven't even been working with an advisor, what advice do you have for both those types of people to help ensure that they are on the right track with their retirement planning?
Yeah, so for the person who is working with someone and maybe not satisfied with that, looking to move to find somebody else, I think a great place to start would be to kind of try to figure out, what do you feel like you're missing with what you currently have or who you're currently working with. If it's a holistic planning, if it's in this area or another, I think that's a great place to start to kind of know, okay, when I go out and talk to people, these are the kind of things that I want them to talk about and to feel like I'm going to get a little bit of better service there. From there, like I said earlier, I think it's a great idea to just go talk to multiple people, go through the process. It's very typical in this industry that initial meetings and consultations are free. Some people do like hourly, but that's, increasingly rare. Yeah. Most people are going to be free. So, it takes your time, but it's worth it in the long run. If you can kind of hear a couple of those different philosophies, a couple of the different ways that people do things. We've had so many people come through who say, oh yeah, we're talking to you guys and we're also talking to these people down the road and these people down the road. After they go through the process, they ultimately decide. Sometimes they'll say, oh yeah, we liked this about them, but we like this about you guys more, or they talked about this. So I think that's really important to, kind of know what you're looking for and then go talk to a few people who you think might be good fits and go through the process with a couple different people. And for the people who are more do-it-yourselfers, I think it's just a great idea to sit down with anyone and just see if there are some inefficiencies you're missing, especially with a more holistic process, because a lot of times people end up being surprised by the small things that they didn't even think about.
Yeah, I think the do-it-yourselfer, honestly, is at the biggest risk, not necessarily running out of money, but just doing things, in some cases, just wrong.
Yeah.
And inefficiently. And it's because there's a hint of arrogance that comes along with do-it-yourselfer in any facet of life. And I can tell you there's areas of my life where, I feel like a do-it-yourselfer, like basketball, like, yeah, the GOAT, Michael Jordan. Like, you can't convince me that he's not the GOAT over LeBron. And if you ask me about certain ways to train and shoot and your form, I have my way that I think is absolutely right. But I'm sure that it's not perfect for everyone. And I think the do-it-yourselfer, especially when it comes to financial planning, because there's so many things that go into what we call a real financial plan, unless you've been in the industry for a really long time, or you've had a substantial amount of training, or you've watched tons and hours and hours and hours and hours of YouTube videos, you're probably going to miss things. And some of them are super critical. So, we've had the do-it-yourselfer come in the office before, and they are so zoned in on not wanting to pay anybody that they come in looking for little nuggets of advice. They want you to poke holes in their plan. And, I think there can be a danger in that. And I don't think it's a bad thing to hire somebody. I mean, I pay for stuff at my house to get done. I could probably do it. There's YouTube videos nowadays I could watch. I don't want to. My time's more valuable. Mm-hmm. But, if your goal is to spend all of your retirement watching your money, more power to you, because that is not me. Cris has a plan. Cris is not going to be sitting there looking at his accounts all day long. I'm going to be enjoying life, be enjoying my family. I'm not going to be logged into Fidelity every day, all day, checking out my accounts. So again, do-it-yourselfer, major amount of respect for them. But in my opinion, I also see them as probably the ones that have improvements that they can't really see themselves because of their do-it-yourself attitude, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. They're also the one that's at most risk, where their spouse is at most risk as well. Because most of the do-it-yourselfers we meet out there are so much of a do-it-yourselfer that their spouse don't know what they do, on a daily basis when it comes to money. And so that could be a problem long term. So anyway, good show, Luann. Lots of good stuff today,
guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody, if you would like to give us a call for your discovery session, again, just want to mention federal employees. There's been a lot of RIF and VERA, Visa, BRP talk. If you're in that position, and I know you guys get a lot of emails, and there's all these classes that they do. Hey, come to the federal class and learn about your benefits. It's like, hey, we do that at the office and a lot more. So if you're a federal employee and you want a second opinion, you don't want an annuity pushed in your face when you walk in the door, come in our office, sit down with us. We'll do a good survey of your analysis of your situation, and we'll be happy to talk to you. 256-937-2010. Again, the number is 256-937-2010. Hope everybody has an awesome and blessed week. And remember to serve every person in every situation with a servant heart. And it's going to be too late when I say this, but be careful with the fireworks out there, because people are still going to be shooting them off on Saturday. Happy 4th, happy late 4th by the time you hear it. So have a great weekend.
Graham Bauer holds the enrolled agent designation, but is not currently offering tax preparation services. Neither the firm nor its agents may give tax advice. Individuals should consult with a qualified professional for guidance before making any purchasing decisions.
Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management LLC, AEWM. AEWM and WG Financial Group are not affiliated companies. Insurance products are offered through the insurance business WG Insurance Services. WG Financial Group is an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through AE Wealth Management LLC, AEWM, a registered investment advisor. AEWM does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by WG Insurance Services are not subject to investment advisor requirements. AEWM and WG Financial Group are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only and is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. WG Financial is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. Information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by WG Financial. This radio show is a paid placement.